Hello and welcome to Sporting News' Quarantine Questions. We are back for episode 3 of our series where we chat to Aussie Olympians as they return home from Tokyo in quarantine. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Australian badminton star Gronya Somerville. Gronya, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks. I'm in hotel quarantine in Sydney and just doing pretty good considering.
So talk us through, how long have you been in quarantine for at the moment?
I think today is day 10 and I get out Friday morning, so just a few days left, which is exciting.
So you haven't been like writing on the walls how many days you've got left? It hasn't been anything like that?
No, but I can see on the kind of dusty window that some people have had like a mark-off chart that they've used in the past.
So let's go back, I guess, straight to the beginning. Let's talk about how you got into badminton, because obviously it's not a big sport here in Australia, but it's one that's got a massive following worldwide. Where did it start for you?
So it was really by chance that I got into badminton through a national talent identification program. So I think it's the first and probably only of its kind for badminton in Australia. So I was just lucky that I was the age that they were looking for. It was specifically targeted at, I think, 9 to 12-year-old girls that were just generally sporty and active and didn't have to have any experience in badminton. And that was launched by Alyssa Camplin. So I went to the fitness day tryouts where we did, sprints, like the beep test, tag games, vertical jump, that kind of thing. And then they gradually cast down from maybe 150 girls down to 60 and started training us, and then kept cutting us down over the next year or so. And after I started having a hit, I just fell in love with the game, and the rest is history.
Were there many other sports that you got involved with as a kid? Like, obviously there's a lot of similarities to tennis and other racket sports, or was it always kind of like, no, badminton's the one I want to do?
So before badminton, I pretty much did every other sport you could imagine. I had like a different extracurricular activity every day after school. I did tennis, I did basketball, gymnastics, athletics, circus, those kind of sports. And then I had like musical instruments as well. But I was pretty good at tennis, but I just didn't have the passion for it. I found it kind of boring. And so I think when I found badminton, I had that hand-eye coordination skill that I'd learned from tennis, but then the game was just so much faster, so much, faster, more tactical. I just found it so much more interesting. So I think it was kind of that, it was really that thing that I was kind of looking for, and I fell in love with it.
Well, this is a good time to bring up our first fan question. Make sure, if you're watching, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. This was from Sam over on Instagram, who was kind of looking about that next step in badminton. When did you know badminton was your calling and you kind of wanted to take it professionally, and when you started training professionally?
I think as a little kid, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. It was just what I was good at, and what, like any sport I was interested in at the time, I wanted to be in the Olympics for it. Or when I was into circus, I wanted to be in Cirque du Soleil. So I always wanted to be at like the pinnacle of sport. And pretty much on that first day of tryouts, when they gave us a hit at the end of the day, and I hit with one of the national players, and we were doing like trick shots and funny stuff like that, I pretty much decided then that this is what I wanted to do. And then since then on, I just, been obsessed and training whenever I can. And I just fell in love from that day.
Now, there's a lot of history in the sport of badminton, not necessarily here in Australia, but around the world. Is that something that you've been able to connect to a lot, being involved in the sport?
So it definitely isn't as well known in Australia, badminton, as it is in Asia, where it has like a strong history there, and it's something that everyone grows up playing through, school and with their parents, that kind of thing. So I really hope kind of through my career that I can help change that within Australia and get the participation levels up and get it more common in, school to get kids into badminton through that pathway as well.
So obviously, let's talk about the Olympic Games. I mean, making your Olympic debut must have been so exciting. How did you find out you had made the team?
So obviously it was all a bit of a mess with COVID and everything, but pretty much all of 2019 we were trying to qualify. And for badminton, that meant just playing a lot of tournaments, trying to get as much ranking points as possible. And then in 2020, it all kind of went to shambles when our rankings were frozen and all the tournaments were cancelled. So it was touch and go there for a second, obviously, if the games were even going to happen. But with the rankings that we had at the time, we were quite confident that we would qualify for the Olympics. So, I didn't get my hopes up until I kind of got that Qantas ticket from the Australian Olympic Committee and had it announced on their like social media pages and all that kind of thing when I was then I felt I could like tell everyone that I was in the Olympic team.
Well, I guess a good comment here from Fickled Freddy on Facebook. Well done and congratulations on an awesome Olympics. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. Obviously, it was sort of maybe not the results you wanted in the tournament, but it must have been pretty amazing to be playing in the world stage, playing in the mixed and the women's doubles. Did you have a highlight moment from the games?
Yeah, so I feel super honoured that I was able to play in 2 events. Not many athletes can do that. So I was very honoured to be able to get a lot more matches and a lot more kind of experience and time competing at the Olympic Games. But probably the best moment that I found most memorable is the first match that I played, which was the mixed doubles. The mixed doubles, we had kind of lower expectations than my women's doubles because we were lower ranked. We hadn't trained together much over the past 2 years. So we were really just out there to enjoy the game, and we were playing against the number 4 seeds from Indonesia. And we were 20-14 down in the first set and then won 22-20. And just walking off after we won that set, we were just like very amazed with each other and just kind of joking and being like, wow, okay, maybe we can like beat the number 4 seeds in our first match here in our first tournament in like 2 years. So just kind of remembering the feeling that we had at that time is really memorable to me.
Did you feel an extra lift, I guess, because you were playing for Australia at the Olympics? Like it kind of was an extra motivator for you? Yeah,
for sure. I think because, you know, most sports, they don't have these multi-sport events that often pretty much the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics for us. It's a huge honour to represent the country and have all the athletes there and just feel like you're among the best in Australia, and you want to do your own sport proud within Australia as all the other sports are doing as well. So you definitely feel the kind of added sense of pride and obligation to really represent your country well.
Now, obviously, you played in the mixed doubles with Simon. I mean, there's the one moment that kind of went viral here in Australia. Obviously, I'm not going to show the footage because the IOC would come for me and the rights and all that sort of stuff. But mid-rally, you realise your racket's broken and you have to rush off and change it. So Simon's pretty much playing by himself in this mixed doubles match. And you were kind of chatting to me before about how it's quite commonplace in badminton. It's something that we see a lot of, but because it was kind of an Australian team involved, it kind of made headlines here.
Yeah, so it is pretty common in badminton. Most players will always leave kind of a spare racket on top of their bag next to the court to be able to do this racket swap thing. So where all players are kind of prepared for it. You don't practice it or anything like that really, but if your string or your racket frame breaks in the rally and the opportunity comes where you feel like you have enough time to go off and swap it, then it does happen. And it happened definitely a few times at the Olympics with other pairs. It happened in the gold medal match in the women's doubles where Gronya Somerville from Indonesia did it, swapped her racket, came back and they won the point as well. So yeah, it's not super unheard of in badminton, but great that it gave badminton some more coverage in Australia, showing it, you know, the little clip on the news and that kind of thing.
I guess looking outside the actual matches that you played, what were the other takeaways that you sort of were able to get from the Olympics, like being part of the Australian team, being in the village and things like that?
I guess the main thing, like in the general prep leading up to it, was just kind of to be ready to adapt to every situation and just kind of make the best of what you can and what's within your control. That was a huge thing that helped me kind of manage the mental stress, I guess, with everything going on leading up to the games. And then once we were in the village, it was just amazing to see how all the Aussie athletes got around each other. You know, you might have heard of these people before, but you'd never met them, and you just like saying hi to them in the lift and asking about their sport and congratulating them on how they're going and just making all these kind of friendships, and just that Australian camaraderie was really special. And I think a lot of new friendships were formed at this Olympics, and athletes will continue supporting each other, you know, online or whenever they cross paths in the future as well.
Were there any Aussie athletes in particular that you were kind of excited to be part of the same team with?
Pretty much like all the main ones are pretty amazing. Like everyone's such a legend, but I get like obviously Ash Barty and Jess Fox is like amazing as well. Melissa Wu, it was good to like, I talked to her a little bit online, but to be able to like talk to her in person as well was awesome. Paddy Mills, yeah, those kinds of guys.
Ash Barty has been a very popular answer when I've asked that question. So, yeah, I think she was one of the most popular ones in the village. One other question that we've had come in is from Ankush. What was your favourite part in Tokyo? I guess you kind of answered that in terms of actually playing the games, but it could have been something else.
Yeah, so aside from competing Oh, it's probably just like just being in the village, especially. I don't know. For me, like in the mornings or at night, there's like just this special buzz that just knowing that you're surrounded by all these athletes, you're in this like village all together with people that kind of have that shared common goal, and I don't know. It's just a good vibe.
And I guess following on from that, what sort of motivation does going to one Olympics then give you in your sport? Like, are you now more motivated to train and go back and try and do better at the next games, which are Paris 2024?
Yeah, I think especially being my first Olympics, I'm super motivated to like get further and achieve a better result at the next one. And obviously after our matches, there's a lot of stuff we know we can work on to improve. Currently right now, I'm very like unmotivated to be physically active after all the preparation that went into training and all the like mental pushing that was just like every day to get to the Olympics. So I need a little break from that for now, but definitely for the next Olympics and especially the next Commonwealth Games, super motivated to work even harder and get better results for Australia.
Well, you clearly made an impact, because obviously we've got more comments coming here. Brian says you did all Aussies proud in this sad COVID time. So obviously a sentiment that I think is shared by a lot of Aussies towards our Olympic athletes who competed in these games. One other thing I kind of want to chat about is in quarantine. We've seen you've been doing a few training sessions, a few live videos and stuff like that. One question that we had from over on Instagram was, what exercises have you been doing in quarantine to kind of keep yourself occupied and keep yourself fit?
Yeah, so this is actually my third hotel quarantine, so I'm a little bit experienced in it. Some things that I love to do to kind of keep a bit of routine is I like to walk up and down and listen to a podcast. So this is something I would do outside of quarantine. I'd go for a walk and listen to a podcast. So it kind of feels a bit like escapism for me, imagining that I'm outside and that it's something I might normally do. But I usually get a stationary bike, which I have behind here as well, that is nice, that I don't have to do impact exercises and can kind of just go at what intensity I feel like. I like doing yoga flows. I like doing strength body weight exercises. And then when I'm feeling it, I'll do some high intensity like interval training or something like that.
Do hotel quarantines get easier the more you do them? Like after your third, is this third one easier than the first?
This is definitely easier in that I think we have like very good rooms. We have a little kitchenette so we can cook stuff. There's a window, which is the best thing ever. So it's definitely the nicer room definitely helps mentally. And I think just knowing that the Olympics is behind me, I don't feel like a pressure to keep up with athletes training outside, and knowing that I have to come out and straight away prepare for a tournament or that kind of thing is just, I can chill a bit more and take it easy on myself.
Are you kind of a bit upset that you maybe didn't get one of the ones up at Howard Springs? We're seeing all the Aussie athletes on Instagram, I guess, sun tanning out on their decks in the front of their cabins.
I was actually messaging Annabelle Smith, a diver who's up there, and asking her how it was. I think like it's kind of both quarantines have their pros and cons. The Howard Spring one, they don't have food delivery, which is something that a lot of us are using here. So Uber Eats, and we can get all the junk food that we are craving after eating so well back leading up to the Olympics. So though they have the balcony, I think the rooms themselves are quite smaller and not as nice. So we have nice rooms here. We have Uber Eats, and then they have like the outdoor balcony, which is nicer. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons there.
So what is the plan after you get out of quarantine? Obviously looking in the next kind of 3-year cycle, there's a lot of sport going to be played. We've got Com Games, we've got Olympics, there's everything going to be involved. What are your hopes for the next sort of 3 years?
So the end of this year, we'll be heading to Europe to play some tournaments there, especially in badminton. A lot of the Asian ones are getting cancelled last minute, and Oceania, there's hardly any tournaments happening because of all the lockdowns within Victoria. So hopefully get into some good tournaments there, play some league matches maybe. And then pretty much preparing next year all for the Com Games. So we want to get our ranking points up to get a good seeding there, hopefully medal. And then after that, we'll just be preparing for the next Olympics as well.
So one fact that I guess kind of was well made once you got selected in this team was, I guess, this unusual dynasty for Australians, that you've got this connection to the King dynasty. And as a result, we've seen your popularity grow, not just here in Australia, but around the world, essentially. Can you kind of talk us through that and how badminton has sort of helped your profile in that way, and I guess vice versa.
Yeah, so I'm half Chinese, half Australian. My dad was born in Guangzhou, China, and then moved to Hong Kong when he was 2 years old. And then when he was 6 years old, moved across to Melbourne. And through him, I'm the 5th generation descendant of famous Chinese revolutionist Kang Youwei, who I didn't know when I was younger exactly how famous he was, but how I kind of got my claim to fame through him was when I was playing a tournament in, I think, 2012 in China. They did a little segment on me on the news because I was the youngest player in the tournament. I think I was 15 years old, and my coach at the time was Chinese. So they interviewed him, asking a few questions about me, and he mentioned that I was related to Kang Youwei. And then the Chinese media just blew up, and I had interviews the next day, and people were bringing me flowers and all this kind of thing. And I was like, wow, this guy is a big deal. So I was, learning a lot more about him from then on, and, all the kind of revolutionary things he did for China, like stopping women from having their feet bound and kind of opposing the strict emperor ruling at the time and having those like westernized views. So yeah, since then, my profile has definitely grown a bit once that got out, which has helped me in terms of, sponsorship and marketing opportunities, which has then helped me afford to fund my badminton career and all the tournaments and expenses that go along with it. Being a small sport in Australia, we are underfunded. So a lot of it does come out of the athletes and the athletes' families' pockets to follow their athletic career. So yeah, through that, I've definitely gotten more in touch with my Chinese side because my dad passed away when I was younger. I haven't had like a huge connection with my Chinese side, but over the last 4 years, I started learning Chinese Mandarin online as well. And then just because badminton has such a big Asian community playing it in Australia and especially Melbourne, I've got more in touch with my Chinese side just through like other players and, going out to eat Chinese food and talking Chinese with them at training. So, yeah.
Were you a little bit taken aback by how quickly that sort of profile started to grow just because of this one piece of news? I mean, as you said, you were quite young in badminton when you first found out, and then suddenly almost a superstar in the sport.
Yeah, it definitely happened very quickly. I think because it was internationally based, it wasn't a huge deal for me because I came back to Australia and everything was just normal in Australia and nobody knew me and that kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely had to kind of adapt a little bit and get some help from, my mentors to help adjust to the changes that were kind of happening in my badminton career.
And so, yeah, it must be nice to be able to have that balance in terms of competing overseas and internationally where you're a little bit more well-known, but coming back to Australia and kind of just being able to focus on training and live a little bit more of a normal life, I guess.
Yeah, I think for sure that's a better way to do it than vice versa.
We've had another question come in here from Rahul saying, hi, Gronya. How would someone go about playing competitive badminton in Australia?
So the first thing is to find a badminton club. Badminton Australia has this great feature now on the website where you can put in your postcode and it'll come up with the clubs around you. So finding a badminton club, and then if you want to play competitively, you need to register as a member. So signing up to that club as a member, and then kind of just going to like your state organization's calendar, picking a tournament and entering it ultimately.
And Rahul also had another question, I guess kind of on what you're saying about funding and getting that support. Do you get a lot of support between the competitive cycles, so sort of in between those Olympic years?
Well, luckily for badminton, because we're both a Commonwealth and Olympic sport, pretty much when one ends, we get some support for the following one. So now like our Commonwealth Games support is kicking through for the next cycle, which is good. I guess in terms of other support, pretty much like we get, for the level that I am, I get support from coaches and like gym support, physio, medical, that kind of stuff when I'm in Melbourne all year round. Yeah.
And one final question that we've been asking everyone that's been a little bit divisive, does pineapple belong on pizza? Really throw it out there.
Yes, I like pineapple in most things.
Well, that's a good way to end. Gronya, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today. Before we go, how can people sort of follow your journey and follow your badminton journey? Let them know where they can follow you on social media.
Yes, I'm most active on Instagram as well as Facebook. So both of those are just Gronya Somerville. I also have a YouTube channel. I think that's Gronya Somerville as well, that I'm very irregular at putting updates on, but I just filmed yesterday a video talking through the whole Olympic experience, answering heaps of the questions that I got from an Instagram question box. It took me 2 hours. So like I'm literally talking for 2 hours. So I need to try and edit that while I'm still in hotel quarantine. But I think I give a lot more insight to the village experience and all the questions that people wanted to know. So yeah, mainly those places you can follow me. And I actually have a website as well, www.gronyasomerville.com.au.
Well, we can't wait, and make sure if you're watching this, head over to Gronya's YouTube channel and subscribe, because I'm sure that video will be fantastic. Good luck for the next couple of days in quarantine, and of course, once you're out in the preparation for the next, I guess, 3 years, which are going to be massive for you. So yeah, thank you again, Gronya, for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.